I don't like to make these kinds of parallels. I'm only making it in terms of the way that the way that American culture changes. So I'm going to make a parallel between the stuff that we're talking about and the cultural movement for people to say Black Lives Matter, because I remember a couple of years ago when Black Lives Matter was first a thing, and I very much understood what it meant right away. And I remember the response was obviously all lives matter. And I think the stuff that you're saying about if we don't talk about it, it's obviously oppressive. And that's what I feel like the all lives matter kind of response was. It was saying, well, we don't want to talk about how Black lives specifically should matter in society. So it's like we're just not going to talk about it. And that's the kind of parallel that I'm seeing right now with our discussion of trans people in sports or in jujitsu.
Yeah.
But the culture has changed and it shifted quite fast. Um, Speak to that, any part of that, if you will. I like to keep these conversations open.
What do you mean? What culture has changed? Like the Black Lives Matter
Wouldn't you say
thing?
that within the last 3 weeks, based
Uh,
on the unfortunate death of George Floyd, that this was a moment in American history? Look, there is still a large contingency. I'm under no illusions at all about who believes in what and what silence actually means
yeah.
from a lot of people. But when I'm seeing, and I'm not praising the men, but when I'm seeing Mitt Romney go to the streets to proclaim that Black Lives Matter, I think that that's a major shift in culture. That it's now a movement that Republicans, and Republicanism isn't, in the last 40 years has been a political movement from whichever part of it you want to look at. The Ronald Reagan Republicans, Mitt Romney Republicans, George W. Bush, Donald Trump
Yeah.
Republicans. It's been a party that has been, in my view, oppressive to Black populations in this country. So when they're able to now get to the point where they can march along and say, well, at least I'm going to at least say Black Lives Matter, I think that is a moment where culture has changed. You agree?
How would you have felt in the 60s, 70s, or maybe when the Black Panther movement was happening? Would you have felt that it was a moment where culture changed?
Me?
Yeah.
I don't think it was a moment when mainstream. I mean, well, the thing is, I think I would have to be a little more in tune with, um, I'd say, what was happening in the 60s and 70s on the day to day to see kind of the evolution, if you will. Um, the way I think that Black Panthers were perceived in the 60s and 70s was very much not part of the mainstream. Even right now, if you were to talk about,
Mm-hmm.
Black Panthers, um, it would not be, there would still be people that would have a lot of negative things to say about them.
Okay.
So,
Okay, yeah, for sure. So I'm just wondering because I asked that because we've had a civil rights movement already,
yeah,
and then we passed some legislation, and then some white people were like, we don't need these anymore.
we don't
Despite the
need
fact
what
we
anymore.
don't need um, we don't need legislation that protects the like
Okay,
civil rights that people fought for. Basically,
yeah,
there's there are people whose job, well, who took it upon themselves to go ahead and try to just roll back civil rights legislation. Like that poor little white girl that tried to get into college, and then they she got rejected from the college. They were trying to roll back affirmative action. Can't remember her name, but that was a pointed campaign where they used techniques created by civil rights activists that were made to get people voting rights, that were made to get people um, in to get people work in the highest levels, at the highest levels, And they started using those techniques created by Black people throughout the civil rights movement. They started using those techniques to get civil rights legislation rolled back.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like that happened already. I'm not saying a definitive yes, this is a cultural change, because Frederick Douglass has already existed. Audre Lorde has already existed. James Baldwin has already existed. Malcolm X has already existed. We've had all these people speaking truth to white people about what it is we're going through. And this work, the work that these people have been doing, has been available this whole fucking time. So like all of a sudden, because people don't have jobs, do they have more access into like empathizing with Black people? I just don't know. There's so little. Honestly, I'm at a point where it's really hard for me to believe in a white person's empathy for my pain. And so I keep going back and forth as to whether or not I should truly answer it when, you know, when people are asking how I'm doing, or whether they want to find out about my experience, or they offer to listen to me. I'm like, you want to listen to me? I went to school to learn how to play music. Like, Alice Walker is a person that exists. She's still alive. She wrote mad books about this shit. You want to listen to me? Why? I'm an opera singer.
I want to listen to you to sing, definitely.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I had to read Alice Walker to come to my political understanding. So like, read Alice Walker. I mean, because you're like looking at your favorite social media people. I don't know. Like, I'm heard enough that it's not going to be so easy for me to believe that a change is so swiftly available.
You know, Mimi, I think what I'm realizing talking to you right now is that the reason why I haven't perceived these movements to be mainstream is because of the circles that I run in, like, you know, family and friends.
Oh yeah.
That don't necessarily embrace the things that I do. So just as someone who has, I don't want to say I've been super like active in terms of you know, civil rights or whatever, but I hear the struggle, I see the movement, and I'm very, very much receptive to its messages and to understanding what I can do to assist. But I see people who actively in my own life just who are completely not with it.
Yeah.
And who want to completely deny the truth.
Absolutely.
White friends who I haven't had a conversation in depth with them recently, but white friends who have said, oh no, Black people have it easier in the United States than white people because of things like affirmative action. Hey friends, thanks for tuning in to another clip of Johnny's Jabs. If you liked what you just saw, please be sure to share this with your family and friends and comment below. And if you want to get more content like this, it's easy. Just click the bell below to subscribe. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Johnny Jabor, and I'll catch you guys next time.